I'm one that believes that no matter which party you support, you should be on the side of the truth. And the only way you can hold these elected officials accountable is for you to know what you're talking about, for you to be able to do just a little bit of research. Doesn't matter which one you support, stand on it. And if it's somebody that's not representing your values, vote them out. I don't care which party you represent, vote them out. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Local Lookout. I'm your host, Bobby Fryer. My co-host here is Rodney Butler. We want to welcome you to another edition tonight. Rodney, how you doing, brother?
Hey, brother, I am outstanding. Glad it's December. We have, a little bit, well, I guess we're right on track for about a month for the inauguration. I hope everybody had an opportunity to reflect, because I know that you probably going to, do some deep diving and reminding some people, again, not to frighten anybody, but also not to make anybody so calm to where they don't have to have anything to worry about. Right. But I know that you got a show full of chopped up things that you want to talk about on this political spectrum, Bobby. So look, without further ado, man, take it away, brother.
Listen, so we are approximately 1 month from Election Day, the results of Election Day, I should say. I made a joke wondering if President Biden had reached out to any of the Democratic governors on behalf of Vice President Harris and asked if he could find any votes, if there were any votes that were unaccounted for, were there any ballots that were taken to the river and dumped, were there any issues about the voting machines, mashing for Vice President Harris and suddenly it going over to Trump. I wonder, were any of those inquiries made? Were there anybody checking the voting machines to where, you wanted to access the data inside just to figure this whole thing out? It's the whole hypocrisy from the last election to this one that's really irking me about things that we're allowing to be normal that aren't normal. And it's the whole laziness, I think, at times, the ignorance of the voting electorate and what we're allowing to happen. And maybe it's supposed to be this way. Maybe this is the lesson we have to learn the hard way, because it's going to be hard. There's so many things in this last election that just don't make sense. And I hope to cover a few of these topics tonight for everyone's consumption. You can agree or disagree, but one thing I always try to do is I don't say anything unless I got facts to back up what I'm saying. I'm not one of these people that open my mouth and just run it without something to stand on that I can prove is factual or is pulling from factual data. A lot of people just shoot from the hip now. They're not interested in facts. They're only interested in opinions that basically match their feelings. And we've got to get away from that. I'm one that believes that no matter which party you support, you should be on the side of the truth. And the only way you can hold these elected officials accountable is for you to know what you're talking about, for you to be able to do just a little bit of research. Doesn't matter which one you support, stand on it. And if it's somebody that's not representing your values, vote them out. I don't care which party you represent, vote them out. There's not going to be any perfect people that are elected on either side, but vote them out if you don't like what they're doing. But this whitewashing that we're doing right now, it's not helpful. It's not helpful for anybody. So we've got to be smart as a voting electorate. So the first thing I wanted to really tackle.
Bobby,
yes.
Before you jump into your deep dive, I just want to remind, the listeners and the followers of the Black Man's Roundtable that, look, the three gentlemen that they primarily see on this platform, on this franchise that we have going, that's part of the Black Man's Roundtable, is myself, you, and Rodney Littles, and I just want to remind people before you take your deep dive, because I know you're about to put it where it needs to go, and I want you to, because I want to remind people that I chose you and Rodney for specific reasons to help me, get the truth out, get the word out to the listeners and the followers of the Black Man's Roundtable, because similar to me, you guys are out there. You don't live in an echo chamber. You don't live in silos. And I really wanted for your voices to to help use this small platform in order to get the truth out there. And sometimes it's going to hurt. And I tell people, you might want to if you're going to watch the Black Man's Roundtable, especially on this political stuff, you might want to put your big boy pants on, your big girl pants on, or whatever, because we are going to bring it to you. We are not beholden to anyone. I just want to remind the people that neither the three of us are beholden to anyone, and many of the guests that we bring on are not beholden to anyone. So I just want to remind people of that. And also, at the end of the day, myself and Rodney, we all have very similar, ideologies, but at the same time, we are not, a monolith. We agree with some things. We bring a different, perspective to the shows and what we do. Sometimes I'm the one that usually have to be a little reeled in a lot, and then you the one that kind of a lot of times bring the calm to everything, and whereas Rodney is fact checking. Yeah. I mean, you're calmer than me.
You know how many people would be like, Bobby? Go ahead.
But I think but either way, and Rodney kind of, always have a lot of facts and always reading off a lot of facts, and not to say that you don't either. You know me, I just kind of know my facts and I just put them in my head and I go with them, and then I'll say, look, don't quote me on it. In other words, go look it up yourself. Yeah. And I think a lot of times that is what's wrong with the electorate. That is what's wrong with the country, is that a lot of the people depending on, just a handful of people, to get them information. And a lot of times when we do, they don't believe us or they blow us off. So, but yeah, Bob, I just wanted to put that almost a disclaimer, or not a disclaimer, just a reminder to let people know this platform, we are not beholden to anyone. We say what we say what we feel, we say what is real. So please, brother, jump into your first point.
Man, thank you, Rodney. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
So I'm gonna need you to calm me down. I'm gonna need your calming influence, okay? Just to throw it out there ahead of time. So
we got it.
So the first thing I wanted to first tackle, okay, regarding voters. Let me just say this disclaimer. Rodney, you and I, we've said this before. The election results with Vice President Harris falling short in this election. Let me just put a disclaimer out here about one particular demographic, and that's Black voters. Black voters are not responsible for Kamala Harris's defeat. They're not. I just want to put that out there straight up. Okay. Black women voted overwhelmingly, over 90%, for Vice President Harris. Black men voted 80% for Vice President Harris. You don't have a category that high, a demographic that high for anyone else. Not even for white male voters for Donald Trump, not even for white female voters for Donald Trump. So let's just make sure that's out there. However, tonight, we will talk about those percentage of those who did not heed the message, did not understand the assignment, because there's some things that I don't understand. And most importantly, the ones that did not vote. Okay. That is a large demographic that has to be addressed at some point. Got to stop making the excuses. We got to start realizing the importance of these elections. So let's dive into a couple of things right offhand. And Rodney, of course, I definitely want your interaction on these things. First things first is the economy. I had some concerns just listening to, again, the voters that were being shown on television about who they were voting for and what their biggest concern was about this election. And overwhelmingly, every time I looked up, and it was the economy. Well, here's what's disturbing to me. You can tell somebody something, and it's been proven now. You can tell somebody something 1,000 times to where they'll believe it's true, and they won't ever take the time to research it for themselves and say, hold on, wait a second. Wait a minute. That's not what I've been told. So when you think about the components of the economy that have been generally used for forever, for all as I'm not an economist. I'm not an expert. I'm not going to claim to be that. However, I do pay attention to some of these things, right? So in this instance, let's just think about some of the things they always talk about regarding whether we're in a healthy economy or not. Remember, we're in a capitalistic society, fellas and ladies and gentlemen. This is capitalism. all right, in the United States. So there's never been a time, never, where no matter how good the economy was going, somebody wasn't feeling it. There's never been a time like that ever. That you can't name a time where you didn't see someone on the streets that was homeless, or someone that didn't need a job, or someone who was struggling or living below the poverty line. There's never been a time like that where this economy worked for everyone. But suddenly before this election, people were like, you know what? Not feeling it though. You remember you heard a lot of that. Not feeling it though. Well, let's just look at some of the things that generally tell you that we're in a good economy, no matter what was said. All right. GDP growth. All right. Gross domestic product. That's the amount of goods and services that we produce in this country on an annual basis. All right. GDP growth for 2023 was the highest in the history of the United States. It was the highest. All right. So last time I checked, that was last year. Of course, we haven't finished 2024 yet. But if you have GDP growth, which has been talked about numerous times, about having a good, healthy economy, that was up. The highest it was up was last year. Okay. In the history of the United States. All right. If you want to talk about inflation, that's what I kept hearing that too. Well, inflation is too high. People, inflation right now is at 2.6%. In 2018, there was a period of about 4 straight months where inflation was higher than that. 2018. Now, I don't have to tell you who was president then, if you want to call him that. I don't have to tell you who was in office then in 2018. All right. Were we in a bad economy then? If you're going to say those same numbers are bad now, did you say that in 2018? If you didn't, what are you talking about? So we've heard so much about inflation being out of control. Let me just ask you, just put your common sense hat on. All right. Because I have no idea of understanding how people live through a pandemic, live through it, and then forget about it when it comes to the economy or economic numbers. All right. So let me just ask you, when you had those supply chains that were interrupted, and I've heard all this other stuff about, well, the Democrats did this and that, adding fuel to the fire. Listen, when those supply chains were interrupted, it affected everything from the cost to build a house, okay, to fast food. I'll give you an easy example. Before the holidays, one of my what's the word I want to use? Let's just say greatest, never mind. Temptations, okay, is Krispy Kreme, okay, Krispy Kreme. I went, no coupon or nothing. Just said, all right, you know what? It's been a long time since I had some Krispy Kreme. Let me stop by here and get a dozen donuts, take it home. The cost of those donuts were $15. $15 for a dozen donuts. And when she told me the total, I said, whoa, wait. You do have this as one box, right? She said, yeah, it's $15. And I just said, wow. Now, that's just a small example. Now, do you honestly think that Krispy Kreme, I don't care between now and 2028, do you think Krispy Kreme is going to take less money for a dozen donuts? If you at 15 now, what makes you think it's going to go back down to 10 or 8? I went to, and I'm sorry, I'm just using Krispy Kreme as an example. I'll just keep this other fast food restaurant nameless. Okay. I remember not long after the pandemic, stopped in to get an order, and I was blown away when the total was $14. I said, wait a minute, what all do you have there? So she repeated back what I ordered, and she said, yeah, we our menu prices went up. And so I was like, you got to be kidding me. The cost of it was, was like $14, like I said. And I just said, like, wow, if you go now to any fast food restaurant of your choice, those prices weren't the same before the pandemic. So understand there's always going to be corporate greed involved in this. And if you're not willing to pay attention to that, then you're totally missing the problem. You had Kroger, for example, admit in a court proceeding by their executives, admitting to raising the cost of grocery prices during the pandemic. raising the cost above what it had to be, right? So they're admitting to the corporate greed behind it. But then we turn around when it's time for the election and we're blaming it on the current administration. Since when does the president control grocery prices? Do you understand that if the government was controlling grocery prices, that's socialism. That's the same thing that you always heard people whining and complaining about. Oh, that's socialism. That is the very definition of socialism, when the government controls goods and services. But now you want the president to step in and control the price of an apple at Kroger or Publix or any grocery store chain that you may choose. It just never made any sense to me. And I was just amazed at how many people just wouldn't take the time to just do some simple, basic research on this. What else you want to look at? You want to look at the stock market? Okay. The stock market closed today over 44,000. Over 44,000. I did just a little perspective to look back at, and I'm going to talk about President Obama. But when he stepped into office in 2009, the stock market was at 65.47 in January of 2009.
I remember when it hit 10, but brother, we almost jumped through the roof when it hit 10,000. I remember.
Yeah. I mean, and by the way, when he closed it, and there's a reason for bringing this up, when he closed his tenure in January of 2017, it was at 19,881. So he nearly tripled, or you basically can say he did triple the stock market when he was in office. Directly related or not, it tripled. Okay. So all of a sudden now so GDP was up, manufacturing is up, small businesses are up. You got I'm not gonna talk about grocery store prices. I'm not gonna talk about gas prices. All right. I'm not gonna talk about crime rate. All right. That's another thing that to me is a ruse argument. I'm sorry. Ever since I saw The Wire and saw how they can manipulate crime rates, I just dismissed that altogether from that point on.
Crime is down significantly. But
it is. Bobby. It is. Border crossings down. Okay. But back to the economy real quick. Unemployment. We're still sitting at 4% unemployment right now. What's considered a healthy economy is unemployment between 4 to 6%. This is by economists now. This is not me just making it up. Between 4 to 6%. So since 2020, unemployment was at 8%. Who was leaving office during that time? 2021, it was at 5.35, 22, 3.65, 2023, 3.63%. All right. So you've had a little bit of uptick of the unemployment numbers, but we're almost at full employment. I mean, that's basically what you can say. The unemployment, the employment opportunities are there. All right. So last thing, and I had to bring this up, is consumer spending. All right. So consumer spending, and I'm talking about travel and holiday spending. Okay. So you had them reporting that you had record numbers for travel this holiday season. Record numbers in the airport. So airports are full. Americans are spending their money to go wherever they want to go. And the numbers came in from Black Friday, $11 billion spent on Black Friday. So you got holiday numbers. By the way, that's up 10% from last year. So you've got consumer spending that's up. You've got travel numbers showing that people are in the airports traveling. Where is this bad economy? I kept hearing it the whole time, and I was saying this then before the election ever happened. Where is this quote unquote bad economy that people keep saying? We're not in a bad economy. Does the economy work for everybody? No, it never has. This is the kind of nonsense that people just lose perspective, and they just won't do a simple search to research the information that they want to see. That's the first part, Rodney. I want to get your opinion, brother.
Yeah, Bobby, as you was talking, I'm glad you ended it with, the consumer piece, because out of everything you was saying, one of the things I was going to say, and I think I said this before when we were on one of the other platforms when we were talking, is that the number one indicator in this economy that we have in the United States, capitalism, is consumer confidence. And consumer confidence is out the window. It is way up there. I read something, Bobby. I forgot where I read it at, but it said something, and I'm going to paraphrase. In America right now, what we have these people who are, while they're complaining about the economy, they are planning their European getaways.
Yes.
And and when I read that, the same people who complain about the economy is planning, getaways, that they so-called can afford. But, it is crazy, man. Like you're saying, every indicator is of an excellent,
at least healthy
economy. Yes. Economy, if we're talking about, capitalism and this free enterprise, system that we operate under. But Bobby, I just think what is happening, man, is that, we usually have a segment, but we know you had a lot to talk about it tonight. So we kind of almost didn't segment the show. We let you go right into hot topics. We usually have a segment called Civics 101, where you give, your civics lesson that you feel, that people need. And the reason I bring that civics 101 up, even though we didn't do it, is because, Bobby, I believe that is so much of the problem. Like you started out, on this episode saying about, the pure ignorance, right? So, the government realizes that, civics and economics hadn't been taught in high school for 30 years in most places, right? I talk about that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I was, coming out of high school in the late 80s. I was, here in Georgia was one of the last classes to get those, economics and civics lessons. I still remember both my economic and my civics teacher by name. And so, because I really enjoyed those two classes, but I say that to say that a lot of it, Bobby, it's just pure ignorance. And I'm not calling anybody, dumb or anything. Ignorance
there's a difference.
There's a difference.
Ignorance and stupid.
Exactly. There's a difference with ignorance. And so now, is some of it, people just blatantly just kind of, choose to be ignorant? Yes, some of it is not, though. A lot of it is by design. You know what I'm saying, Bobby? It is by design. And so here what you do, you let the mainstream media, because you hit on that a little bit, you let the mainstream media is out here just throwing just all kind of distractions or whatever, knowing people don't quite understand civics and understand economics, and then you get what you get, which is a bunch of people that the other side understand that we can throw anything out there and they'll believe it. Because the last thing I'll say about this, to make it real relevant to everybody, Bobby, I tell people all the time, right? People, when, in America, like, people can't stand to look not smart about money, right? Yeah. So even if they don't understand money, they'll just act like they do. Because they just don't want to, they just don't want to. So they're just sitting there like, I don't know what the world you're talking about.
Fake it till you make it.
Fake it till you make it. And also with economics. I'm sorry, with civics. People just be quiet because they're embarrassed about not knowing, who their local elected officials are, right, who their state senators are, who their governor is, who they don't know. They just don't know. And so they kind of be quiet. They want to seem smart. But a lot of that, I think, has to do with a lot of what you said with your first, I don't know, segment or whatever you want to call it. But a lot of that, I think, Bobby, is you hit. And I think that's the only thing I had. And as you was talking, I was writing a few things down. And I think one thing I do want to do to close out my, commentary on what you just talked about, Bobby, is that we always have to remember, right? We're not trying to get on here on the Black Man's Roundtable and blame this person, blame that person, right, but you obviously going to hold people accountable tonight, and I'm gonna back you up. And so because you and I, believe in a lot of the same things when it comes down to this so-called electorate that we have in the United States. But I just want for everybody to understand, while they got you pointing fingers at everybody else, the immigrants, the transgender, the blacks, the whatever, the culprit, the person who is usually winning, is the rich white man at the top.
That's right. Yep.
So you keep on pointing at everybody, but they are laughing right now. They are literally laughing at everybody. And I'm not trying to, sound and scare people and be some negative Nancy, but I'm telling you, they about to get you.
Oh yeah. Oh, yes. And you gave them full, I'm just telling the voting electorate, you gave them full reign to do whatever they want.
Yep.
And they're going to laugh all the way to the bank.
They might not have a mandate by the numbers when it all come down, but you know what? Just like they do with everything else, Bobby, they're going to call it a mandate, and guess who's going to believe it? America.
Yep.
You and I know. We understand, Stevie. They didn't. It's not a mandate based on the numbers.
Right.
But they're going to keep saying that Trump got a mandate.
Yes.
Trump got a mandate. And
Yes.
people are like, what the hell is a mandate? And then, they're going to tell them what a mandate is without anybody looking it up.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're going to operate on that we have a mandate. And you know what? You know what more than likely the Democrats going to do, what I'm feeling, Bobby? And I know you're going to talk, well, you may not talk about it, but I'll get into it a little bit later when you talk about the electorate. Mm-hmm. The Democrats going to do what they're about to do. They're about to go way back. I already see it happening. They're about to go back to the 90s, bro.
Yes.
But anyway, I don't want to steal none of your thunder. So
no, you are definitely on point with that, because and we'll get into that as well.
Okay.
Now I can tell you as far as a Civics 101 thing, mm-hmm. and I don't know if we talked about this before, but we can briefly talk about tariffs, because apparently people don't understand what's coming.
Talk about it, bro.
Okay, so for example, that's another thing when you kept hearing people talking about the price of groceries, et cetera, the price of eggs, things are just too high. You voted for more tariffs. You know who pays those tariffs when you hear Trump talking about adding more tariffs to China, Canada, Mexico on things that we import here? We pay that. That's the national sales tax that VP Harris was warning everybody about. So how do you sit here and on one hand, you talk about inflation and how the cost of things, basic things, are too high, and you just voted for tariffs to make them even higher? It around this time next year, if he implements what he's saying he's going to do, we'll be in a recession.
Yep,
we'll be in a recession, and then you'll be sitting around saying, "Well, gee, how did this happen?" Because you let it happen. Is why it happened. They didn't hide this stuff. He told you what he's going to do. And there's no reason for him not to do it. And all you're going to get is all that's going to happen is you're going to get in a tariff war with our allies. All right? Like Canada and Mexico are our allies. The stuff that we import from them, if you're going to slap some big tariff on them, talking about people coming in from the border as though that's going to punish them. No, it's punishing us. It's punishing us as consumers. We pay for the cost of tariffs, not the country that we're buying the imports from. We pay that cost. If you don't understand that by now, you didn't listen. You didn't bother to try to look it up for yourself and understand that is a basic principle, and he does not need the approval of Congress to do it.
That's right.
He doesn't need the approval of Congress. So if he wants to do it, he can do it. So there's not going to be any excuse for if the tariffs go the way he says he's going to do them, and you see the cost of stuff go even higher, because we're talking about everything from electronics to apparel to everything, all right, that we import from other countries. By the way, Walmart's about to make bank, because all the stuff they import from China that we buy from out of there, they're about to make bank. I don't know if you got any stock options, but yeah, they're about to make some record profits if this implementation goes through the way he says it is. So those are just little simple things that if you just do simple math and understand that the cost of business is always passed on to the consumer. It's always been that way. They're not going to pay it. We going to pay it. All right. So so these are just some basic things that people should take the time to just do some simple research and understand, oh, that's what that is. Yeah, that's what we're trying to tell you before the election happened, but you weren't listening. You were too busy paying attention to, they got this celebrity endorsing them, or, the transgenders, and, I don't, who she's sleeping with and what does she identify with. Paying attention to stuff that doesn't matter. I don't want to hear anybody from this point forward talking about policy. I don't want to hear it. Because if you were paying attention to policy, I heard one candidate lay out some and I heard another one give nothing. Absolutely nothing. And it didn't matter to you. It just sounded good. And you try to reflect on days that have gone by that, I'm sorry, days that happened because of the previous president, the previous occupant of the Oval Office. And I'm going to say his name was President Barack Obama. I listen to people, and I hope I'm not getting off from the topic because we were just talking about tariffs. But I got to bring this up because this is happening for a second time. He's walking into office with a good economy. We just talked about it. The economic numbers right now are good. Whichever ones you want to pull, you may be able to nitpick something small somewhere, but overall, the economy is fine. And he's going to walk into another good economy. The same thing happened when he walked into office the first time, thanks to President Obama. I just told y'all earlier about the stock market, how much it had rebounded. Unemployment reached as high as 10% under Barack Obama. It was under 5% when he left. Okay, so he cut the and that includes black unemployment as well. The unemployment rates were cut in half.
I think it's the lowest unemployment rate for black people in since recorded history.
Yeah, it just
black people. Yeah, I mean, I think no other time unemployment rate has been better for black people during slavery.
Yeah, the numbers don't lie. Oh, I'm gonna throw something else in here. I had to look up with GDP growth. Right, just to flashback to that for 1 second.
Go ahead.
GDP growth was under 3%. When I say under, I'm talking about negative 2.58% in 2009. We all remember the financial crisis we had going on in 2009. There's only one other time that GDP growth was a negative. You know what that was? 2020. It was at negative 2.21% growth. Again, pandemic, and you had the financial crisis in 2009. Those are the only two times in the last, I'm looking here at numbers that go back to 1990. All right. So you're talking about over the course of basically 30 years where this has only happened twice, where GDP was at a negative for the country. And again, so people go back to this so-called golden era where they remember, things were low. Things were so good, during the Trump years. And ignoring what a president did for 8 years to get this country back on his feet, that bothers me. That bothers me because of all the amount of work. And I heard him say it. I'm glad I heard him say it during the final weeks of the campaign. President Obama reminding everyone of the work that he had done and what had happened during his tenure to hand off to him a good economy. And here we are again about to do the same thing. So I don't know what results you're expecting, but I'm not expecting anything good. I'm expecting the same thing to happen that's happened before, where he screws it up. And you're sitting around wondering why you're in a recession.
But this time, Bobby, I think it's going to be worse because remember the first time this guy had no clue what he was doing. In Donald Trump, he had no clue what he was doing. He didn't even expect to win the election.
Right.
He didn't know anything about government. I still don't think he know anything about government. He's just learned, how vulnerable, government is. He's also learned how vulnerable a democracy is, right? So he's learned that stuff. But Donald Trump, if you were to ask him how many people are in the House of Representatives, he don't know. He might know how many senators there are, but he wouldn't know how the Electoral College, why it has the number of. He don't know the civics part of it. But what he did what every grifter does. Is he learned the pertinent things that he needed to learn while he was in there. And now, again, not trying to, sound just so negative or trying to scare anybody, but he's learned enough to where he can burn the place down if he wanted to, because he's going to I think he's just testing the water with some of these people that he know that would not, be confirmed to his cabinet, right? This man this time he's going to have loyalists. There will be absolutely, no one to, no stopgap, no guardrail, no anything. And, and he's going to immediately start working on, Project 2025. They're going to immediately start working on, rolling back that 1964 Civil Rights Bill. And, those are the things, DEI, all that stuff is already gone. And
denaturalization.
Yep. that is going to be, but when you was talking, one of the things I wrote down is that, well, one thing I was going to say in the last part is where, your first part is where Kamala Harris talked a lot about price gouging, right? The mainstream media even tried to downplay that, because that's exactly what you was talking about, Bobby, when you was talking about the grocery stores and all this stuff. And that's why you don't really want to, and I said, I know why Bobby don't really want to talk about this. He don't want to talk about it because he know that grocery prices were totally controlled by corporate greed.
That's right.
By price gouging. And every time that Kamala Harris would talk about that, the mainstream media, the so-called, even the soft, liberal media, whatever they want to call it. I don't think the media is liberal at all, but they would be the ones who really kind of take her to task on, well, it's got more than just to do with that. But it's the number one reason, okay? And here's how I'm gonna tie that to it, Bobby. Before and then I should be finished. I'll be finished with your second part, which is in the world right now, from the pandemic, okay? From the pandemic, the United States is actually the envy of the world in how the United States has recovered from the COVID pandemic, okay? And let me tell you, the main reason why is just the same reason we're talking about, that they're price gouging at the grocery stores and at the gas, at the gas stations or whatever, is the number one reason that we have been able to recover and the envy of the world is because of immigration, brother. Immigration. You know what? Let me tell you something. South Korea, for instance, they don't have a bunch of immigrants,
right?
Okay, to recover their economy. Look, this country has always operated on slave labor, okay, and even today, that immigration labor is, you may as well call it slave labor, because they put so much into the economy as far as taxes and in Social Security. They can never receive any of that stuff, okay, But what I'm saying is that all the European countries, people don't know this, because when we talk about national or world news, like they'll say, this is world news tonight. No, it's not. You said one thing about what's going on in the world, but because people don't know, Bobby, that we are the envy of the world right now, because of our recovery. That's from right. Most industrialized nations are still hurting.
That's right.
Their interest rate,
inflation.
Their inflation rate is still off the chart because of COVID. But brother, when you have immigrants doing what they are doing, all the way from those Haitian immigrants, rebuilding that city in Ohio, in the whole 9 yards, that is happening all around the world. Yep. Then once you use them up, you want them out, just like those Haitians. They literally rebuild. What's that city? Columbus, Ohio? No, not Columbus. Springfield, Ohio. They literally rebuild that, brought that city back to its feet. That city was about to be
They were recruited. They were recruited to come there.
That's right. They recruited them to come. And now that they've done what they do, okay, now get out of here. So, but anyway, I just wanted to say that, Bobby, is that, we don't know, because we don't, let alone we're being bamboozled and hoodwinked by national news. So therefore, we as Americans really don't know what's going on around the world. But right now, America is literally the envy of the world in our inflation rate being so low, and because we recovered from the pandemic, and the number one reason is because of immigrants, and now all these people voted on get them out of here. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what they told you the right thing to do.
That's right. I mean, I guess it's funny when you say that, because I'm just amazed when people forget, like I said, about we had a whole pandemic that you lived through. Y'all even forgot about, at one point we had a shortage on chicken wings. We couldn't even get toilet paper. All of a sudden people forgot all of that stuff.
Couldn't get no printers. I tried to buy printers. Like, get out of here.
I mean, it's just amazing what all the things that people forgot. So I'll close out that segment on that. We have a hot topic I definitely want to share with everyone, and everybody should be familiar with this right now. Rodney, I know you will be as well.
Let's do it.
So the hot topic this evening is President Biden pardoning his son, Hunter. I am amazed, sitting and listening to people or just seeing reactions on, whether it be on social media, about this faux outrage about President Joe Biden, pardoning his son Hunter. If you ask me, the day after the election, I would have pardoned him. This is not a controversy, people. You got a man that's coming into office that pardoned criminals, all right? From Manafort to Roger Stone, General Flynn, the list goes on and on. Jared Kushner's father, the list goes on and on. You didn't say anything. You didn't have this faux outrage then. So don't have no faux outrage now. Do you honestly think that this man coming in, all he's talked about is retribution, retribution, retribution? He's putting people in place that ain't even talking about doing nothing for the American people. It's all about retribution. Do you honestly think you're going to leave, if it was your son, your last surviving child, who you've lost your wife, you've lost 2 other children, you lost your adult son to cancer? Hunter is it, as far as Joe Biden is concerned. That's his last child. You think I'm going to leave my child out here to be basically left to the wolves of this administration coming in to determine his fate? How stupid would that be? I mean, and let's say the people that are trying to hold him accountable to, but he said he wasn't going to do it. Well, let's just say he didn't do it. And they say, you know what, Hunter Biden, we're going to sentence you to 50 years for a crime really that nobody gets this punishment for. But we're going to have retribution. We're going to give you 50 years. And the public be like, I can't believe that President Biden would let his son sit out there, and let them determine his fate like that. It's what time are we living in, Rodney? I don't understand this mentality of people right now. It's bizarro world.
It is where what is up is down, what is left is right. Bobby, I'm kind of a student of American history. I'm definitely a student of Black history, and even a tad bit, a little bit in world history. And so, this is what really I don't say it scares me, because you can't be afraid, when you know what's coming. You can't be afraid when you understand history and you see everything is happening. You know that I have talked about as far as just strictly, and when we talk about American history, okay, I talk about how we seem to be somewhere out of Reconstruction. Somewhere out of Reconstruction. Yep, and I talk about it, Bobby. I talk about 1865, slavery, and then and we had that Civil War, and America was just absolutely hurting, like any other country would be with the Civil War. Okay, it's hard. Most countries fail under Civil War, or they end up splitting up in a Civil War. You have North whatever and South whatever, or East and West whatever, but the United States didn't do that, or at least didn't do that on paper. Okay. But the United States is still a very divided country. Absolutely. Just without, we say, Mason-Dixon line. Okay. All right. So we can go from there and say, hey, this is really South United States and North United States or whatever, or East and West of the Mississippi, however you want to do it. But we are a divided country, and the Civil War left us divided, but we just didn't put it on paper. And so, and I think I say that, Bobby, because, I talk a lot about, right after, the Civil War, we went into Reconstruction. And anytime we go into fixing this country, that is where, the people who were brought over here in the hulls of ships are dependent upon. And of course, Black men was given the right to vote. We're talking about the 1800s. Black men were given the right to vote, and there were all kind of Black men voted to the Congress, to include one of the most famous ones, Hiram Rebels, yep. and and so many others. Exactly. And so, but as soon as everything kind of started to look good and stuff like that, the deal I'm about to say, Bob. I said 100 times. They show that film in the White House, Birth of a Nation. Yes. They scare the bejesus out of it. It's what they're doing right now. They scare the bejesus out of, because we didn't have an immigration problem back then. So they scare the bejesus out of white people to say that here come these Black people, they about to rape and pillage and do whatever. And they kicked these guys, got rid of all these guys out of Congress or whatever, because now the nation is feeling, pretty good about itself again. And then we didn't have, another, I believe another black man voted, into the Congress until like 1962 or something. But it took that amount of time, and now I think, there's all with Black progress. There's a lot of white lash. Bob, we just got to be honest. This is the Black Man's Roundtable. It's just a lot of white lash, and so that's kind of since Barack Obama, like you said, 2008, this country was about to flip over, with the housing on its knees, with the housing collapse and all this kind of stuff. And it's like they got Barack Obama in there, elected him twice, and then it's like, okay, everything is fixed. The economy is booming. We're about to hit 20,000, on the stock market. Like I said, I've been an investor in the stock market for a very long time. So I remember, that when it hit 10,000 and everybody was jumping out of the roof, and then when it hit 20,000. And so right before Barack Obama left out of there, and I think you quoted, you said this in your facts, is that it was about to hit 20,000, but it didn't. I think it was 19.8, I think is what you said. But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, it's all fixed. And you go and you get the most unserious a talk show, game show host, whatever this guy was doing on TV. You go and get the most unserious person who's telling you all of this stuff. That was the birth of a nation again. So I think that is about where we at. I think Donald Trump represents the birth of a nation. The film that was showed in the White House of it was just straight fear mongering. They had white people in black face, playing, starring in this movie. It was not sound because it was so early. There was no sound, and so and I think that's where we at, Bobby. When you ask what's going on, where we are, and guess what? Right after Reconstruction and right after all that stuff, and not voting another black man, because again, black women still didn't have the right to vote at this point.
That's right.
But then what did we do? We went into Jim Crow, right? We went into the Jim Crow era, which is where, when you ask a lot of Trump supporters, what was this? They say, make America great again. It's like, when do you consider it great?
Right.
And I'm telling you, Bobby, they talk a lot about the 1940s and 50s, deep, Jim Crow. Yep. And, and others talk a lot about, hey, that romantic, whatever they have with the antebellum South and slavery, you know what I'm saying? And so look, those are the two that I primarily hear from those people. And if people are quiet about it, then guess what? You're just as guilty as they are. So Bobby, if you were to ask me, as far as historically, I would say that we are, look, they're going to try to do everything they can. Look, me and you, we have talked about Project 2025, Agenda 47, throughout, on this small platform that we have right here. But that if they have their way within 24 months, within 2 years, before the midterm elections, if they going on 2025, Project 2025 hard, and if they get to just do half of what Project 2025 tell them to do in the first 2 years, that and it get passed and everything happens, along with Donald Trump doing executive orders to get some of the stuff done, we will literally be back in into the Jim Crow South. And let me tell you something. I think a lot of people, white people, who think that those were the good old days for them, they're going to find out that it wasn't.
It wasn't. That's right.
It wasn't. You were just fooled to make believe that, as long as you are as long as you are treated better, or you feel better than the richest black man, then you know what? That white man is robbing you out of everything out of your pocket. That's and what they're going to realize is that they were hurting too. When we hurt, the nation hurt.
That's right. That's right.
That's my long-winded answer, Bobby. No, and I got a whole lot more to say on that, but I'm not. I'm gonna just leave it alone because, Bobby, I know I'm gonna wait till your summary, and because I definitely want to talk about where I think going forward, and where I think we at, and look, the bottom line is maybe this place deserved to be. Anyway, I'll save it.
No, I'm right there with you. This is a time for your head needs to be up, your shoulders straight, chest out. That's what you better be prepared for these next few years. So I'm right there with you. I know exactly what you're saying. So that leads into my final topic.
Yes, sir.
Which blends right into a perfect segue of what you talked about. I mentioned earlier, I did want to talk to those segment of black voters who either did not vote or who participated in voting for the felon, or even those who said, you know what, I'll show them, I'm going to vote third party. I'm going to vote Green Party. That'll show them. Listen, first of all, I have, it's your vote. You can do what you want to do with it. I have zero understanding of voting for someone like Jill Stein, okay, who every 4 years, she comes around, she asks for your vote. She's never won anything, okay, nothing. You don't see anybody from the Green Party in your local government, your state government, and you don't see them in your federal government anywhere. So voting for Jill Stein to me is just flat out stupid. Third party, again, you can do what you want, but until you see a third party candidate, which would be an independent, really have any power, the only ones that you hear about was Angus King and of course Bernie Sanders. You don't hear really about anybody else that's an independent that's responsible for any legislation, anything significant that they've done in Congress. So it makes no sense to me. To me, you're an unserious voter. All right. That's the first thing. Now, here's who we're not going to hear from. Here's who I'm going to, respectively, since we're talking to our people, respectively, I'm going to challenge you. Those of you that constantly talked about reparations and you say the Democrats need to do something and blah, 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 blah. They don't ever give us anything. I'm not telling you any party is perfect. And I'm not telling you that fault doesn't lie on one side and doesn't on the other. I'm not. All I'm going to say is I can't take you serious if this is what you say you want. And we all think we should have some form of reparations as black people. Of course. All right. My argument is not that. I've only said as far as the means to get it and define it is the main thing. Define what you mean. Because if you're waiting on a check, you're talking about, you can't quantify how much we have contributed to this country in dollars. You can't. And who's going to figure that number? Who's going to get it? You don't have enough money in the federal budget if you took every last dime to distribute out to us as far as what we contributed to the country. That ain't realistic. Okay. But here's what I do know. You are not going to say anything under this administration. Why do you hold one administration or one party responsible and you don't hold the other? I do not understand that. Okay. If you're going to make this argument, you do it no matter who is in office. But I'm telling you, you know good and well, you're not going to hear anything these next few years. And if the next time we have a Democratic president in office, and we don't even know how elections going to go from this point forward. But the next time, then you're going to hear the same conversation come up again. And it's going to be like, why didn't you say anything before? That doesn't hold any consistency whatsoever. It doesn't make the issue be serious. All right. Because you're holding it accountable only for one party. If you want it done, you hold it for both. But that's not what's going to happen. I know that's going to happen. I don't want to hear from anybody, any of us, that talks about black home ownership, the black home ownership gap, the black wealth gap. I don't want to hear from you. I don't want to hear from you from those who talk about, who are okay with police being granted full immunity. All right. I don't want to hear from you. And I'm going to go back to why I said that about the black wealth gap and the black home ownership, because VP Harris had a plan. And I'll be honest with you. I wanted to see it. All right. A plan for, do you realize how many times we talked about as far as our kids and getting them started on the right foot? I have 3 children. Okay. I have 2 basically adult children. I definitely have one, my daughter, who's already a college graduate. I have a son who's about to be a college graduate in a year. I have another one still in grade school. All right. So I'm thinking about their future. And if I have a candidate that was sitting there offering money for starting a family, money for down payment on a house, money to start a small business, 10 times more than what you would normally have, talking about eliminating loan debt, student loan debt, okay? Talking about, and I'm not saying this about my kids don't do this, but basically about decriminalizing cannabis, all right? All these things that we know have affected our community and about us getting a fresh start. Do you understand what that was sitting on the table? And I have not heard anything in this administration bringing it up. I was looking forward to actually saying, you know what? I've been self-employed. I've had my own business now for 24 going on 25 years. Okay. I was thinking about, okay, and I'm still thinking about it, obviously, but to start another business. All right. That opportunity would have been out there. I listen to people that would say, well, if you give $25,000 for down payment on a home, they're just going to raise the price of the home. You know what? That's what you want. I'm going to tell you why. If you buy a house for $400,000, which is about the average now, right? If you buy a house for $400,000 with 25K being able to be deposited down on the house, because it's high right now, the amount you have to bring to the table. So if you have 25K and they raise the value of that house from 400,000 to, let's just say, 415. All right. So you bought a house for $415,000. Let's say it's new construction, for example. You bought it for 415. What do you think they're going to raise the price on for the rest of the houses that aren't even built yet? They're going to keep going up 430, 445, 450. So the 415 that you paid and the next house that's the same floor plan as yours and got the same amenities as yours that sold for 450, you just walked into $35,000 in home equity.
And Bobby, not that why you got that pause right there. I just want to say this, because we talk about civics, right? What you just explained is supply side economics, brother.
Yes, it is. That's it. I'm like, when are we understanding what's at stake here? Nope. When we bring this type of thing up, and this is the last point for this segment, for this show. I heard some of us say they didn't want to vote for VP Harris because she's been part of the system. Okay. She's been in law enforcement. By the way, that false narrative of her locking up a bunch of black folks as though she was running around like a street cop, driving around just arresting us. That was never what she was doing. All right. And people not understanding what an attorney general does. What's her responsibility? What's a district attorney? Their responsibility. They have a team of lawyers working under them. They don't make judges. They don't make decisions, as to the punishment. All right. That was another thing. We just locked a bunch of people. No, those are judges. Okay. And those are jurors that decide those cases. And we kept spreading that false narrative. Right. But here's the question that you would ask anyone of us. Wouldn't you want to see more of us in law enforcement? If you had a criminal case, would you feel better with someone looking like us representing you on a case? Or do you want to just leave that to those that don't? I think I'd want more black people in criminal justice.
Especially on the side of being prosecutors.
Absolutely. I think I would want, and defense attorneys as well. I think I would want to see more of that. We got to stop sometimes with just running narratives that don't make sense, because we're more intelligent than that. We're far more intelligent than that. I believe in the intelligence of black people always. Okay. We can get sidetracked sometimes and not paying attention to stuff, but we are intelligent, talented people. And it just bothers me at times when I hear narratives that are being spent that we fall for. We're too smart for this. Sometimes we have to just stop and think. Just do a simple Google search on some things. Come on, people. We're too talented for this. I will always believe in that about us. But sometimes we got to let these false narratives go by.
Good. I mean, everything you said, man, is just it's outstanding, and it's so in depth. But I'm like you said, you hear me talk about a lot, Bobby, that African Americans are the most savvy voters in the world.
Yes,
I believe that. Have I been every place in the world? No. Have I been around the world? Yes. But I say that because it wasn't that long ago. It wasn't that long ago. The early 1600s was not that long ago when you look at the relative of how long, history has been on this earth. And so I say that because we literally had to bring ourselves out of not just slavery, but chattel slavery.
Yeah.
Chattel slavery is absolutely horrible, and I'm not going to give a lesson on this program about it. Look it up. But I do believe that African Americans are Uh, there are communities in the world, around this globe, Bobby. They were enslaved, maybe, yeah, for a long time, longer than African Americans were enslaved in America. Maybe they were enslaved 1,000 years. And it wasn't even chattel slavery. Like it was almost like in indentured service. You can work your way out of that. You wasn't
Right.
born into it.
That's right.
But they still have not recovered some 3,000 years later from just going through regular slavery.
Mm-hmm.
Here we are, not 500 years, and we are the culture of America. And I say that to say that, yes, we are intelligent, but we have allowed ourselves. I'm gonna pause, Bobby, because I see you got something to say.
Oh, no. I was just going to agree with you. I was just going to agree with you. We're the culture of the world.
World.
Who else wants to everybody wants to copy our culture. Everybody. That is a fact. So I just want to add that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. I just knew but I just want to say that we've been studied. All these distractions that are put in front of us, is by design. Some of the imagery, some of the things that's been put in front of us is also by design. There's a reason that that Bill Cosby and R. Kelly and P. Diddy and all these guys are locked up and in jail. Or wasn't, I guess Cosby is out. But for the exact same things that, Donald Trump and the other guy, I can't think of his name, the one that committed suicide, Epstein and all these people. Yeah, Jeffrey Epstein. Mm-hmm. And it's like, look, we're going to show you right to your face that that you cannot do what these white men do. And you know what that leads to, Bobby? That leads to a lot of our young black men, for instance, wanting to, looking at Donald Trump, as straight, like, this guy is the man, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so he wins at everything. And so a lot of these people, are don't necessarily like Donald Trump, but they want to be like Donald Trump. And so a lot of people, I think, vote, even some of these white people who believe that they're going to gain something out of some kind of white supremacy or some kind of, white privilege or whatever. They're going to see that America's about as close as you can get to a caste system, brother.
Oh yes,
it is more about your socioeconomics than it is your skin color, and a lot of people about to realize that very soon.
That's
right. And so I'm with you, and I agree, but I do believe that our people, have been hoodwinked, have been bamboozled, led astray, run amok, like our brother, Malik El-Shabbat, Malcolm X said, and so I think we really got into the mud, Bobby, especially over the last 60 years. Mm-hmm. And I think that we have been targeted, and I don't like where we are. Can we recover? Yes. But, Queen Latifah made a rap song, back in, I think it was in the 90s, called Unity, UNITY. And I'm going to tell you, that's the only way that we can, even begin to think about surviving this. But our people, man, are so the morals, the values, what we believe in.
Resilient.
You know what I'm saying? We're gonna have to, like you said, we're gonna have to resolve. But I'm hey, like one of our local radio personalities here say, I will run through hell with gasoline draws. With gasoline draws on for our people. And you know that, Bobby. But we got to wake the hell up, bro. We are asleep at the wheel, and I do believe by this time next year, like you said, many of us are going to pay for a lot of decisions that was made with this election, and I'm afraid that a large percentage of us will not be able to recover just from the first year or two of this administration.
It's going to be a lot of I told you so. Tried to tell you, you wouldn't listen, and I'll end on this.
Yes, sir.
One of the things that really disturbed me, and Rodney, you and I are both veterans, and I was naive enough to believe that in this election that we would at least say, listen, we may not agree on policy on a lot of things, but we can't have a convicted felon running the country. We can't have all this talk about no one is above the law and the whole world watching us. And talk about democracy and et cetera, et cetera. I naively believe that at least we would come together for that. and say no, no, no. But there's now all this hand wringing over, well, the Democrats should have done this, Democrats should have done that. And you and I both talked about it. Man, listen, stop trying to figure it out. America just showed you. It just showed you what's still at its core. Bottom line.
Yep.
Bottom line. They weren't interested in policy.
Nope.
They were not interested in policy. They weren't interested in facts. All right. They just showed you at its core what America is about. And we as veterans, that's what angers me the most, is knowing, Rodney, you were deployed overseas. I wasn't deployed, okay? But I served and I showed up when I thought I was going to be deployed. When they told me the next day, who was going to be sent where and we're going to start training to go. I showed up the next day.
That's right. Okay.
I didn't run. But we weren't called. All right. And I don't sit there and say like, yeah, I wish we were. No, hey, look, I was a college student. No. I was 19 years old. Okay. But I knew that the last thing you were going to call me was a coward. So, to know that you were willing to put your life on the line. And I know myself at 19 years old, I just, the thought in my mind of, I don't have any kids, I'm not married. But Lord, if I got to go on that battlefield just to pray that I would survive and come back in one piece. That's what was going through my mind at the time while I was a college student. It was never the thought of running to another country to flee or go AWOL. It was just, Lord, just let me survive and come back here in one piece. And hats off to you, brother, for you risking your life to do that for this country. But to see this now, there is some hard feelings I have right now, as far as what we've decided to do as a country, because it just really bothers me. And I'll just ask you, your opinions on that before we close out for good.
Yeah, Bob, before you do the wrap up and the close out, I will respond to that. I'm a multiple combat tour, as you know. I've been on multiple combat tours, and I say almost got killed 2.5 times, right? And so, but I didn't. I'm here, and I tell you, brother, it is. I can't even. All I can tell you, Bobby, is that my tolerance is very, very low. But I'm in the fight. Don't get me wrong. Or whatever. I was talking to some people the other day. I was at a dinner, a formal dinner, and I was like, am I prepared to always, physically fight, for my liberty and for my family's liberty? Absolutely. I'm armed and dangerous, whatever you want to call it, right? But at the same time, I don't. And I said, you know what? I told the brothers that I said I don't want to though.
Right.
I fought for. Why do I want to fight here? I don't want to fight a domestic war. I didn't raise my hand to fight. Well, I guess I did, foreign and domestic. But I'm like, yeah, I did. But I never expected to. I guess I better say, I never expected to have to fight domestically. And so, I'm just worn out, and a lot of us are. But we're going to continue to fight, Bobby, and we're gonna. And I know, like I said, and all this stuff about, like you're saying about you didn't, you got the call, or you didn't get the call. But you got as close as you can get to the call. Brother, that don't matter. Let me tell you something. There's just so few of us that have worn the uniform of this country. You know what I'm saying? And the people that scream the loudest, the people that want to be, these paramilitary people or whatever, they've never put on a real uniform, brother. You know it. You understand what I'm saying?
The yahoos.
Exactly. You know what I'm saying? And you can join the local police departments or whatever and make yourself feel like you some kind of, and do all this paramilitary stuff. But at the end of the day, you know what I'm saying? You didn't fight. You weren't willing to fight, a foreign war, on foreign land, so that's the way I look at it. But Bobby, I tell you, I've been challenged. I'm not going to lie. There's part of me that want to just walk away and say, my God, but I understand that I'm operating, on a lot of information that a lot of people, like us. And I'm not saying we're different or we're elitist, but the bottom line is we have put in the work. And when you've put in this much kind of work and when you've put in this much kind of study and understanding, what the United States is and what it's built on, all this stuff about, well, this is not us. This is not the United States. I'm so freaking tired of hearing that. I don't know what to do.
Yes,
Hashtag this is America.
That's
period. It is what it is. It's what it's built on. Like you, I didn't have a whole lot of hope that people, were going to, vote because of, basically what you was talking about to me, Bobby, was patriotism and just, all of that. But I ain't gonna lie, I really was I really believe that white women, I'm not gonna lie, I really believe that for the first time that they would literally vote,
for their rights.
Yeah, for their rights. For the rights to their to their bodies. And I'm like, because white women have enjoyed so much they've enjoyed the fruits of a lot of people's labor.
That's
or
right.
they've just enjoyed their proximity to white men, right?
Yeah.
But but a lot of their rights came from, people like John Lewis getting his head beat down on the Edmund Pettus Bridge.
That's
White
right.
women have gained a lot from black people being out in them streets. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
They have
Yep.
benefited the most from that. Now you also benefit from that proximity to white men. But I'm like, you know what? I got it. I understand why they voted about, on average about 53%, for white men, running for president, since 1964. I got it. But I'm thinking, but then now for the first time, white women may lose rights.
That's right.
Versus gaining rights. So I figured they would just, pussy hats galore. I just figured they would just be like, okay, no, now they're taking our rights.
Yeah.
And man, they voted for that. They voted for the Republican white male candidate at the same rate that they did in 1964.
That's right.
They voted for Trump. I don't know if all the numbers are completely out, but they voted for Trump at 52% back in 16, and they voted for him. It looking like 50 or maybe I got
around
about
53%.
Okay, yeah, I think it was 54% back in 16, and I think it's
16,
50.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I think it's but they did the same thing back in 1964. They've always voted, for that white male, no matter how many, So, but I really thought so. If there's one group that I thought would vote differently, I expected everything from Hispanic, Hispanic men or whatever,
Males.
because Hispanic, we can talk about that some other time, because that's just a group that the United States Census, that's a whole nother thing. But yeah, I expected that. But I really did expect for them to finally say, you know what, black sisters have been just doing it, landing on the line for women's rights, for LGBTQ and everything else. Black women have really been, let's get out here and now we're losing rights, and let's help our fellow sisters, and so it was a pretty letdown for me. I don't know why, but it was just a letdown, but I should have known better. So that's on me.
No, I feel the same way. Everything you said, I feel the same way. And that was part of my naivety in thinking that would be, one of the differences in this election, and to see it just repeat itself, like you said, from 2016 and from 1964. Oh, man, that was just, just part of the big letdown.
Close it out, brother, because we at 111. We'll be all night.
Listen, well, I want to thank everybody for tuning in again to Local Lookout with Bobby and Rodney. You can catch us again on the first Thursday of the month. So between now and then, have a very Merry Christmas. Have a blessed, Happy New Year 2025. Again, heads up, back straight, shoulders back. That's what we're going to have to look in 2025. So this is not a time to fear. It's a time to just, let's buckle up. We don't bow down. We get tougher during these hard times. That's when the true test of your mettle is shown, when things get tough, not when everything is good, when things get tough. So I want to thank you all for participating. Thank you again, as Bobby Fryer is your host. Rodney Butler is my co-host. Scouts, we'll see you next time. God bless.
Peace, Bobby. See you the first week in January, brother.
Yes, sir.
Peace.
Peace.
Don't forget to check us out on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Do you have show ideas or want to be on the show? Shoot us an email at blackmansroundtable@gmail.com. And please follow us on Facebook.